Welcome to the new episode of the FragTalk podcast. Very, very happy to have you guys back. As usual, it's always a joy to talk to you. This is basically like sitting in the living room, a little bit distant, but talking with buddies and just nerding out about stuff. I have John, I have Mo, and I have Luke as per usual. How are you guys doing?
All good.
Pretty stellar.
Fine.
Great. All right. Anyway, let's get into the episode because it might be a little bit of a long one. I'm very, very excited. Today will not be necessarily a list or some sort of fragrance showcase. We will be showcasing fragrances, but it's going to be more of a tool to aid the conversation and to push this boulder forward. So today, Luke will be steering the conversation. It was sort of his idea. Luke, it's all yours.
Thank you, Daniel. So, as you said, it's great to be back in the conversation to talk about fragrances. And the topic that we will be covering today is about the connection between fragrances and art. And I think, if I remember properly, that I pitched the idea like imagine that you are in your own personal museum and you have to curate a selection of fragrances. And you have to introduce them as pieces of art. Which fragrances would you choose to describe them as piece of art? And how would you do that? And why would you do that? And this is like a general idea that I think is quite interesting to think about how we experience fragrances and how we talk about fragrances. I think it's very, very interesting to question our relationship to fragrances through our words, and I'm really, really excited to share, to listen to what everybody has to say on the topic.
Absolutely amazing. And yes, the broader conversation is, can fragrances be considered art? Because again, Luke is obviously very much into art and into the artistic side of fragrances, as I am. So our response will be probably affirmative. Yes, fragrances can be considered art, but there can be arguments against that. Who knows? I have both sides of the medal. And sorry, I just forgot. Before we get into the conversation, let's just go around and let's talk about our sense of the day very, very quickly. I have been wearing Nasomato's Indu Grass, as some of you have seen from my post on the community post and even on Instagram. It's a nice fragrance. I've got this in a trade fairly recently from a subscriber. He just reached out on Instagram. He's from Switzerland. And he was like, hey, you want to trade? I have this. You like it? And I was like, sure. And it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's a discontinued one. It's like a fresh minty patchouli. It has density. It smells a little bit like fancy hippie in a way, but it's cool. It's not too narrative. It doesn't have that narrative factor that the later Gualtieri products have, but it's nice and edgy. I like it. It's something along the lines of Black Afghano. I think that it actually was released more or less at the same time. It was probably kind of hinting at weed. It does have a little bit of a green weed accord, but it's not too obvious. It's not something that I would not wear around. Cool stuff, though. And for those wondering, it does kind of smell like the Frédéric Malle Monsieur. It's very, very similar. And so, yeah, do not lose sleep over Hindu grass. Do not seek it out at stupid prices. If you're wondering what it smells like, just get yourself a sample of the Frédéric Malle Monsieur. It's very, very similar.
So to piggyback off of that, I'm also wearing a Gualtieri creation today. I decided on Black Afghano. I don't even know the brief for this. I don't know what the marketing scheme was. I just kind of assigned my own experience and value to it. But what I tell you that smells like, to build off of that, the cannabis kind of angle, this smells like the resin that's left over after a dirty pipe is kind of lying around. I don't know if you've ever smelled that bong water style of smell embedded into this. Little bit of that going on, kind of dark. But I also know today I'm going to be alone a lot of the day. And these are the days where things like this shine for me, when I know I'm gonna be by myself. Very creative scent for me. I really like to immerse myself in it. You don't need much, and I really love Black Afghano. So take a look at the bottle. It's a work of art on its own.
Love it.
We'll get to the topic, and I'm really excited for that, actually, right after we see these awesome scents of the day from Mr. Mo and Luke.
So I don't have the bottle right now, actually, because this is not a fragrance that I'm going to showcase today, but I am wearing Khanjar by Oman Luxury. which is actually one of my favorite fragrances. And today it was very sunny but not so hot. And I don't know, but I was scared of wearing this fragrance in a very scorching day. But today I thought, you know what, why not? And I more than the weather allows it, I really wanted to wear this one. And yeah, I've been rocking it, if I can say
It's
so.
awesome. I love it.
It is
I
great.
bring the whole sample that you sent me. It's very, very like leathery, gritty, masculine. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a sample of that, and the way I remember from my wear is that it smells like a nice leather shoe, but you got a slight bit of poo on the sole because it has an animalic little hint.
It reminded me of a specific kind of poop, like in the sun, though. Like, you know what? I don't know. It's kind of gross, but it was like kind of yellow smelling. Weird thing, but that's what I got from it, and I liked it. It's lavish. It's actually kind of rich, like a really upscale smell. I don't know, for a rugged smell, it's very upscale.
Mo, what's your scent of the day?
Yeah, I went a lot lighter than you guys. You guys went with some heavy hitters today. Well, today I was relaxing at home. I do my own hair because it's cheaper. Me and Luke probably relate on that. We save a lot of money, so I had to go for a barbershop scent, and I've gone for Bon Monsieur from Rogue. Putting a bit of a dent in this one. I'm quite concerned how quickly I'm going through this. This is a ode to past barbershop scents. It's basically lavender and oak moss, but it's not like French lavender that's really smooth and like classy. This is like very rugged and in your face. For an easy tea, it's absolutely crazy loud, and it just evokes this masculine feel. I also just sprayed the living crap out of it, like 7 sprays direct. I use it like as an aftershave almost, which is quite wasteful, but for the whole day, I've just had this classic masculine aura.
Rogue is
Can't
really
beat that.
underrated. It's awesome. Awesome brand.
Yeah, I really love this one.
All right. Back to the topic at hand. So, Luke slightly introduced it. Let's start off. Let's steer the conversation. Luke, on to you once again. How do we proceed? Just guide us through this.
So I was thinking about, the meaning behind arts and fragrances as an art, because there is a lot of confusion, and the definition about art is there is no proper definition about art, and we might end up, like arguing over things that are simply not well defined. And I think we should just start by stating the obvious. Many times when I hear people talking about artistic fragrances, they mean either that it's basically unwearable, that it's super niche and it's artistic, like you don't understand what you mean, like it's like niche, it's really unwearable, but it's artistic, or that it's very well done. It's sometimes it's just like, oh, this is, it's not industrial, it's not like industrial, it's artistic, like in a way it's very well done. And I think it's not enough to define art in either of those ways. So I think we should really be flexible with our own definition of art. I have shelves of books that are stating what is art, and not one of those books agree with one another. So there is probably zero chance that we will define art properly.
Do you want to go and do a round of like how to define art, or rather, what are the characteristics of fragrance and art?
Yeah,
our opinion.
Exactly. I was thinking more about what is art and what is like an artistic fragrances or an artistic piece of art, while keeping in mind that there is no absolute truth about what is art, and be flexible about this. I think it's a nice way to set a base and build upon that.
Perfect.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly the first thing that I got hung up on when I wanted to contribute something valuable to this conversation. And it's that art doesn't really have a strict definition. It's very relevant to the experience and the observer or the experiencer, right? So it's like inseparable. Like the way I appreciate something is much different. I think it even goes past just humans. Animals do art. AI does art. It's not even a person. Like, here's a question. I don't want to get lost in the weeds too much, but What if an AI makes a fragrance from start to finish on its own? Is it still art? That's open, right? Or is it just a product? And I think that's where we're going to have to find the line between product and art expression based off of your experience more than the intention behind it, really. For example, what I mean, is this less artistic than this? Which one's more artistic? You know, to you guys, you have an answer.
Yeah.
But if you ask everyone on Earth, no one's going to have a definitive this or that. You know what I mean? If I just keep asking, hey, is this more artistic than this? You have a feeling of which one is, but there's no definition of which one is more or less artistic. And one more question would be, what isn't art? Like what is not art? Where do we get to something that is not art anymore? Is a commercial fragrance not art anymore? Like,
I did have similar thoughts about this. When I first started, I had to define art as well. And you know me, the way my brain works, I don't like to leave things up to interpretation. I like well-defined things. And at first, I just Googled what is art, which was a bad idea. But basically, it was just talking about how it's just a form of human expression. But then that means that technically anything that is created is art. But we both know that that is not true. And then I looked at some of my fragrances for inspiration, and some of my favorite ones that I think I was trying to include in this conversation, but I had to come to the realization that they're not artistic, even though they are very well made. And the analogy that I kind of came up with is that if you think about clothes or even architecture, like buildings, you can have a super well-made building or a super well-designed piece of clothing, and it could be technically perfect, like executed to perfection. Every thread is done immaculately. Do you see what I mean? But that's it's like a good craft. It's like a high level of craftsmanship. But the art aspect is like architecture, building a crazy building with a specific intent to express yourself. I feel like that is more of an artistic thing. I think fragrances are products, but the decision whether they're artistic or not tends for me to lie in the intent or what it evokes for you personally. Like for music, for example, you could listen to a song, a piece of music could be a jingle, like from McDonald's. I'm loving it. I mean, Pharrell and Pusha T made that musicians, but it's not art, right? It's a jingle and it's designed to sell product. But if they make a song or an album, then that's more of, it's the same, they're using the same things, musical instruments, lyrics, words. It's in the same kind of, it's an auditory thing. However, that's more artistic because it has that intentionality and expression. Do you see what I mean?
Like when you brought up building, like I had the experience personally of living with someone, my dad, who is masterful at building everything, repairing. And as I watch him, the art behind it is undeniable. Even if it's a simple thing like we put a door jamb in place or we fix the car, you have to see like the actual, there's so much beautiful stuff going on that could just be overlooked. He's not intending it for it to be art, but it still can be art. Like
I think that's craftsmanship. I think that's craftsmanship and execution. So, for example, one I really wanted to bring up today was Guerlain Heritage. Okay, and I tried to think, is this art? Okay, one of my favorite perfumes, and I decided that it's probably a perfectly crafted and executed, technically made perfume, and it's better than a ton of artistic fragrances, right? But it's not artistic because the idea behind it was just to make a really good masculine perfume that looks back at some other ones they've made. And to me, that wasn't enough. But I could bring you a perfume that's clearly not well made, but it's more artistic. So I think that was an important thing in my mind is to have the craftsmanship, which is super important, right? And the artistic aspects. This is why I think a lot of perfumers are great crafts people, yeah, technicians. But then they go and make their own brand and it sucks, right? It's because they're not artistic in that way. They can bring your artistic idea to life in an incredibly amazing way. But I feel like the idea, like for example, let's look at a perfume that's got a creative director and a perfumer. Okay, whose art is it? Is it the creative director who wrote the brief and it's their original idea, or is it the guy who is making it happen? It's like an architecture and like the builders. You see what I mean?
I'm actually with Mo with this. I'm very much aligned to his thought. I think that there's a strong distinction between craftsmanship and art. So to me, art is very much tied to the intent in communicating an idea. If you don't have the intentionality to communicate something, like a feeling, an emotion, an idea, a story, or something, then you're just making a product. And for example, sometimes products can be born as products, but they become art over time. And one of the products I always bring up when talking about this is, for example, the Porsche 911. That is born as an engineering masterpiece, right? But through the years, they refined it so much and it established itself so much that it became a statement. And at this point, it can be considered like a piece of nerdy art in a way. It's like so precisely, meticulously put together, but it's talking about the Porsche 911. It's not anymore a car. It's not like the first iteration, right? So in perfumery, I see it as the same way as in music. So for example, if a musician produces something which is designed to be commercial, it's not really art. You're making the best optimized piece of music possible. But if you're talking about something yours, and if you're telling a story, if you're telling your opinion, then it is artistic. And there's no art which is better or worse than others. Objectively, yes, you can like something more than others. Some art can be more effective at communicating. But art, once it's like categorized as art, it's basically free for all. But there is that very strict distinction, and I think that it's not even a gray area. It's like either one thing or the other. And I do agree with Mo that there is obviously admiration towards craftsmanship. For example, like again, the perfumer and the art director, two different things. You can have admiration for the perfumer in the way they assemble thing, in the way they choose their chemicals, in the way they do their dosages. But the art direction is the person that decides the method. And I have a very specific example for that. On to Luke, though. Let's just circle back.
Yeah, I think a lot of good points were raised. I think first there is something that is important to be said, is that art does not mean, or artistic does not mean good. Because like sometimes I've had this discussion, not about fragrances, but about a lot of things, about movies, about books. And sometimes you say like, well, this is not art. And they take that personally because they think I am implying that it's not good, that it's less worth than something that I deem artistic. And that's absolutely not true. It's really like, as you said, there is good art and there is bad art, and there is like non-artistic products like books that are way better than artistic ones. Really, there is no judgment of quality. I think that's really something that I wanted to get out. Second thing is getting back to John's examples, when you compare, two fragrances and you ask people which one is artistic. Maybe I will get shouted in the comments, but I think it's not all opinions are worth listening to when there is something like that. Not because like you can say like I prefer this one or I prefer this one, and it's perfectly fine. But if I made you listen to a piece of music, I don't know, like some very avant-garde like Bartok, you can check. It's very, very, very hard. And then I compare it to like my 5-year-old's nephew, which is like clapping on a piano, and I ask you which one is artistic. Well, if you're not, if you don't know, if you're not used to listening and maybe, like deciphering the intent behind it, you will say, I don't know. But that does not mean that your opinion on the artistic value of something is really well constructed and maybe need to be taken with a pinch of salt.
I love it. I love the good dose of elitism
Yeah. I will. I am ready to discuss it in the comments.
So in general, I do kind of agree, meaning that in order to, you don't have to be super experienced, right? But you have to be at least open-minded, like open to interpreting art. If you don't have that sense of doubt, if you're not a little bit skeptical, it's very difficult because then you're like, you kind of just fall into judging stuff upon taste. Again, you might like something more or less, and you might judge the artistic one less just because you don't understand it, or you're not willing, or you're not open enough to like try to understand that message. So yeah, I do agree that you have to have a specific mindset to even like look at something and deem it art or not. Again, there is a fair amount of subjectivity, but I feel that if someone truly, like an artist, truly comes up with a good idea and they try and they invest time and effort into trying to manifest and communicate that idea, that is objectively art, right? It passed all like the checkpoints. It has all the like the characteristics of art, and it should be valued as such. And I think it's a lot about honesty. In fact, my 3 points, my three distinctions of artistic fragrances will kind of revolve around being honest with what the product is overall, right? And there's various facets of art. Like even once you consider, all right, these are three artistic things, there's like various degrees of art.
I still feel like it's very dependent on the observer. There's no definition still, in my eyes, because I could appreciate because I don't really personally care that much about what someone else said that they intended on. I see it as like marketing a lot of times, and it's hard for me to differentiate what's a really successful and convincing marketing scheme and what's not. Like I feel like even these like really organic sounding houses, like these really down to earth artisanal houses, I still just look right through their briefs. I read their stuff. I listen to them talk, but I understand that it's all to sell you something at the end of the day. In a way that's cynical, but I see that because of the society that we're in, the systems that we participate in, they need to compete with each other to sell things. And there's a huge base of people like us. I guess I'm with you guys too in a way. I'm not like disagreeing, but I do have to bring my opinion. They're trying to grab your attention and feel organic, whether they are or not, feel original, whether they are or not, feel creative, whether they are or not. And in a way, like guys like us are jaded. We have information, we have experienced so much reading, looking into discussions. But if I show this to 100,000 people, many of them will say it is art, right? If I show this to 100,000 people, many of them will say it is art. I try to see things without the artists talk about it. I try to experience things on my own and have my own experience because there's interpretation of art and there's experience of art, and those have to be separated. The more you look into what is art, I think what I was listening to was that the more you try to interpret art, the less of a point their art was. It's meant to be experienced, not interpreted. I know that we interpret things and we try to give back our opinion and our observations, but there's more to it than any kind of one guiding, like these are the parameters. And for instance, like Argos, right? Obviously there's art going on here. There's something going on. Someone drew a picture, someone did a thing. But guys like us might see past it and think it's gaudy. But you ask 100,000 observers and they're all going to say something different. Thus, this is art because the experience can vary. There's no one thing on my table here that is any better or worse than or more artistic than. We assign these values based on what we know or what we think we know, based on our immersion in this hobby. But
I agree, and that's you have an excellent point about selling something, and it's not always a product. It's not always a physical product. Sometimes it's selling an idea, right? So, for example, if you take modern art, like that painting there, which is a canvas with a cut in it, you know, that is, some people are very opposed to that. They're like, that's just it's just obnoxious, right? It's just like completely, it's BS. I think that there is a strong degree of like selling an idea, and that is part of the making of the art. And I do feel that if you put in a lot of effort into what you're trying to convey, selling the idea comes easy, right? If you're a very, very good con man, you could sell anything as art. But for example, you brought up two fragrances there, and you keep bringing up the Versace, right?
Yeah, I have other ones that
For
could
example, for
fit.
the Versace, if the guy,
Yeah.
if like the person who created that fragrance just says straight up, look, no, I came up with this in the sleep. It's literally a flank carbonara fragrance that was going well. We sold it. I needed to make more money. This is my motive. Is that still art for you?
For me, I don't care what he said. That's the thing. I have this, and I have my own experience with it. I'm not even
I
going to try to interpret it. I'm just going to look at this objectively and say, very cool, very nice bottle. Personally, that's why what I mean is like people are so different. Not everyone cares what the artist has to say about their own work.
but isn't that the essence of art? Like listening
No,
to what the artist has to say?
I don't think so at all.
Okay.
Even the guy who ripped the canvas, right, and he shows it to you, you immediately have feelings and an experience is happening. Even though it's distaste, even though it's a negative thing, he's successfully getting a feeling out of you. And he has successfully done art, even though you have something to feel about it that it isn't. He still portrayed something to you in a contrarian way that I can't believe this guy, that, and the other thing, but it actually had an effect on you. And that is the only point at all of the art. I don't
think we
think it
should-
needs to be good read.
I think we should separate. It's important to separate the result from the intent, because some fragrances that are clearly products could have a huge emotional response to you, right? And you could feel really emotional, either euphoric or really sad and depressed. But it could be with the intention of, I just want to make a fragrance and sell it and make loads of money, right? And some artistic things could get nothing from you. But that doesn't mean that one is artistic and one isn't. I think the result is separate from the intent. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you a genre of music that you're really super not into, right? If the product is not made for you, okay, it's very difficult for you to have the emotional response or reaction or understanding. So let's say hip hop music or rap music, right? If you're not going to experience it because you're not necessarily the target audience, or you just can't relate to the certain things, it's going to be very difficult for you to critique it and say, well, this is not art because it doesn't move me or do anything for me. But to critique it properly, you need to have an understanding of the intentionality, whether it, even if you don't really feel any emotional connection to it, whether it's creative or unique, and where it stands in the zeitgeist of that specific area. So I think we should separate the result, because some fragrances are designers and they evoke an emotional response. For me, some fragrances are artistic and I feel nothing towards them, right? I feel like it's important to have that distinction, because just because I can have, I don't know, a designer and it makes me feel amazing, that doesn't mean that it's art or it's succeeded. Because I don't think the art is necessarily the result is the communication aspect. Whether you feel it or not, obviously they're trying to have as many people get the idea. So I think that's what I would say, because sometimes if you just focus on the end result of a feeling, if there's someone got a reaction, it doesn't mean that it's, even if you just hate something, that's not artistic in a way. Do you see what I mean? And also another point you said about the marketing and how I totally agree with you that sometimes the marketing is a total scam. It's filled with all the classic words that all these companies use, a unique masterpiece of a factory or whatever. It's like, come on, like shut up, that's such bullshit. And I totally get it, okay? And on my channel, to test the theory whether these artists are scammers, I did the Mayfushuni discovery set without reading his materials, in case he's just a major con man and he conned my friends Daniel and Luke into loving his stuff, right? I sampled them without reading the stuff to see whether the product itself is going to communicate that feeling and emotion without, he didn't market anything. All I read is the name of the fragrance. That is marketing, right? But it's very minimal. And that's how I knew it was really good art, because it evoked the emotions or the communication. Some of them I didn't feel emotionally, different about them, but it communicated something and brought certain images in my mind. To me, that is a good piece of art, because it did that. No words were spoken. It was totally olfactory. that's where I would say that he has an intentionality. I did not fall into the marketing hype because I didn't even read it. And that's how he passed the, like, this is definitely art, it's not a scam kind of test that I did.
I think that there's nothing that I disagree with what you said. I actually am totally behind that. I like going into things blind without the influence of the marketing team, even if they seem very organic and real. I just still feel like we even hype up things to each other that we are marketing to each other in a way. Like, I respect your guys' opinion so much, and I can't wait to hear what you recommend, and I go get it. But that's just like based on, like, I know you guys appreciate like a higher quality tier of an experience. Like, there's more going on. I understand that immersion and everything, but I could still sit here and enjoy this just as much. I don't care about what the artist was behind it. It smells awesome. It evokes things to me immediately, even the bottle, right? And it's frowned upon to like something like Hawass now, right? At our level, it's frowned upon to look at. I swear, I feel that way. Like, it's like, how is this not as beautiful in any way as something like this? There's still
you are using the word beautiful, and this is beauty is not correlated to artistic or not. That's really the point. Something can be beautiful and not artistic. That's really,
one not art.
Really,
Which one isn't art?
I haven't smelled any of those, to be honest. So I couldn't know.
Just look at it. Look at it. You don't know what they are.
No, I don't know. I know Memo. So I would say this one is niche, but I try not to be influencers marketing as well, but I will judge the fragrance by its bottle. That's not how it works. Even if the bottle is beautiful and I have some beautiful art, quote unquote, in front of me, this is not what I think we should be focusing on. I think really, like, and I agree with everything that has been said, like a lot of modern art, and I go, like, I'm a nerd, and I will go and I will endure like modern art exhibit, like Daniel spoke about, like this guy who is Lucio Fontana, by the way. He just like cuts, he makes cuts, okay? And I do not like it. Is it art? I don't know. I consider myself not qualified enough to judge about this. But
what does that mean? That you're not qualified?
Yeah.
Every observer experiences the art, right? So there's no art that's above your pay grade.
No, I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that. I say, like, the same way that, see, if I make you listen to some FragTalk or like some random notes on a piece on a piano, unless you are really, really like into avant-garde classical music, there is no way you can make the difference. You will not know the difference. And I know, because even if I listen to this kind of stuff, sometimes I don't know the difference. So just that there is something, and I think we should have the humility to say that sometimes I don't know. It's just like,
yeah, unless you take the art at face value, being like, all right, that's art. I accept
that's
art
point.
at face value. Then I agree with Luke. You need to, sometimes it's like you don't know. Like, for example, I'm not an expert in poetry whatsoever. And sometimes you read some stuff and it's like, I guess it's art. But again, it's like there's a question mark there. You're like, all right, I guess it's art because it's above my pay grade, right? So just to give a fragrance example, this Louis Vuitton Imagination is not art to me at all. This is like an excellent product. It's an amazing product, very, very well designed. This is the Porsche 911 of fragrances, the original one, not what it became. But this is not art, in my opinion. This is something that has been designed with a marketing team. It has been designed with a board. It has been designed to make money, and make money it does. But this is not art, in my opinion. Even if you take Jacques Cavalier, I bet if you ask him, like, is this art to you? He's like, no, this is just like a really good fragrance. It just came out really well. I put in my expertise and it just came out really well. On the flip side, I totally agree with Mo that Mefushuni is, in my opinion, like true fragrance art. And we can get to that later down the road. But something like this, Sécrétion Magnifique, this is This is art, but this is kind of like resembling the canvas that is cut, in the sense that this is something which is like a statement. It's provocatory, right? It's something that this is not necessarily made to be wearable. It's made to be sold, yes, but it's not made to be wearable. This is not a fragrance. If you take a random person on the street and you give them this and you're like, smell this, they're gonna be like, what the hell is that crap? That's gonna be their first thing. It's not gonna be like, oh, that's really artistic. They're just gonna be like, did you piss on that thing and give it to me? Because that's what it smells like. So this is only art if you view it in the context of art. You have to know what it is. And that's why I second Luke that you have to have some experience. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at this and you're going to be like, this is the worst thing ever, period. Once you know what this is and what it stands for and why it's provocative and why it's made the way it is, then you're like, all right, it smells like ass, yes, but it's intelligent, it's provocatory, and it makes a statement. It conveys an idea. It's like a protest against perfumery. You can see it as that. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit forced. In my opinion, it's not as genuine as something like Melvushuni, but it follows the same criteria. And just to give you another example, this thing here by Filippo Sorcinelli. Filippo Sorcinelli is an incredible creative director, but he still does produce stuff to be a little bit provocative. He is kind of along the lines of Gualtieri. Gualtieri knows exactly what he's doing. Gualtieri makes products which are easy to interpret on an artistic level, but he's not faking it. Deep down, he's like, I'm making a product to sell. It's not for me. It's for the public. It's for the public to interpret in an artistic way. So this one here is a little bit of a smarty pants sort of artistic. It's very, very artistic smell wise. And again, you need to understand what it is to appreciate it, because this again smells like piss, kind of, smells like piss and blood. And it's cool once you know what it is. Otherwise, it's not cool at all. It's like, I don't like that, period. I might like a bottle. The bottle screams like artistic, in quotes. It's like stereotypical art. But to really understand the scent profile, you need to have that a little bit more elevated sort of not taste. I don't want to be completely elitist. It's about accepting what it is and trying to investigate what it is.
I think that art doesn't need to be interpreted. It just needs to be experienced. I think that's my main point. Sorry if I got lost in the weeds.
So let me play devil's advocate. Going back to Segression Magnifique, right? All right, so I give this to someone on the street, random, on a blotter. Or better yet, I spray it on their hand. And I'm like, I don't even say anything. I'm like, on to you. And they're like, this smells like ass. I don't know what it is, but I need to go wash my hand. What kind of reaction is that? Like, how do you, what part of the artistic side do you see it? Like, how do you see it as art in that case?
It's still an experience, it's an experience. It doesn't need to be, as Luke said, it doesn't have to be good or bad.
But then everything is art.
It evokes, that's what I mean. Like, what is not art? Everything is art, basically.
But if everything is art, something is art.
Here's why. Because
like
the observer,
philosophical point. If everything is something, nothing is that.
Here's why. Because it's the observer who assigns the value to the experience that they're having from the thing that's evoking. I guess art is any information that causes an experience. That's it.
I think if the way I see it, an example that I would give that would maybe you guys could relate to is like language. Okay, let's look at language. Okay, it might be a bit of a tangent.
There you go.
But language is a method or a means to communicate something in your brain or that you feel, right? So let's say you want to tell me something that you're feeling, and let's say that feeling is hunger, right? So we assigned these words to say I am hungry, and then you have gotten a very good idea about how I'm feeling because you have felt hunger before, right? And the perfume is like the language. In perfumery, the perfumer, if he's an artist, he's using the smell as a language to make you feel something that he intended. Sometimes it's not very good art and you can kind of not feel what he intended at all. But a really good artistic perfume, he uses the juice, the smell as a language, just like words, to tell you something or to make you feel a feeling that he wants you to feel so that you can relate to one another. And that's the way you interpret it. And I feel like that's how you can kind of say this is art, or rather, if it's executed well, you'll have that feeling, or you'll understand the message through that. So it's just a ways to communicate an idea or a feeling. Do you see what I mean? So I don't think not all smells are like art per se, but I feel like if I was to say an artistic thing, if someone was saying smell good and they just, I don't know, spray you with a blue fragrance, that's not artistic because that's just like something basic. I'll bring this one up now. My example is this Mirfashuni Little Song, right? This is so precise, like the exact feeling that I get from this is I'm almost certain it's the exact feeling that he felt, and he made this to convey that feeling. And that feeling is someone who is, you know, in a dark environment in their office, working through the night, and all they've had is coffee and a cigarette, and they're working super hard. They've not eaten, they've not communicated with anyone, and they're just super focused. And it's quite sad. And they feel like they have to do this work. Like it's like almost like a life or death thing. They can't go to sleep, they can't do anything. This has consumed them. And to me, he successfully evoked that feeling because I managed to get that exact feeling, something that I could relate to, just through smell. And that's artistic to me in that way. Whilst, is this my favorite smelling perfume? No, not at all. Is this the best made perfume in my collection? Absolutely not. Have other perfumes made me feel or experience something? Yes, and they're not artistic. They were designed. Sometimes things are designed just to be something, and we interpret them in another way, and that's absolutely fine. But I feel like you have to link the art to the intention of that person, because otherwise, like I could, I don't know, like for example, I was wearing this Bon Monsieur, my scent of the day today. It evoked a really amazing, euphoric feeling. You know what I'm saying? Give me a spring in my step, etc. But that's categorically not artistic because he just said, I'm going to make a copy masculine sense from barbershop sense from the 80s. And that's exactly what he did. Do you see what I mean? So he did not, his intention was not like, I'm going to make you feel this. And then like, you see what I mean? So it's like, that's how I see it. But also, I think another thing that I wanted to discuss is originality. I feel like every time I research artisticness or artistry, being original or unique is a big component. And I mean, I have to bring up a designer to make this a bit more down to earth, and I have to bring up Dior Fahrenheit. Okay, this is by definition an artistic fragrance, even though it was made with the intention of selling and being the best masculine ever. But it's artistic because it was super original and unique. Does that make it artistic? Because if you Google it, this is in every like artistic fragrances because it was unique. No one's ever smelled anything like this. This leather, violet, citrus kind of thing to smell like petrol in 88 is like crazy and unheard of. So is this artistic because it's original and unique? Does that qualify it? Because that is a facet of art, is for it to be originality and uniqueness, right? So I raised this question, which is quite interesting, is Dior did not intend to be art. Did they intend to be artistic with this? I doubt that, right? I really, really doubt that. I think they were still trying to sell, you know. But it is artistic just because of the virtue of it being so unique and unheard of. So what do you guys think about that? Especially the Fahrenheit example.
I think art and artistic don't necessarily need to be coupled.
So you do agree that artistic requires some sort of intent, right?
That's a different thing. And I think that still really relies on the observer. Because if I give someone that fragrance, they're going to have a different experience than you and I and Luke.
But so again, you don't have to necessarily quantify the experience itself. For example, you could look out of the window and you could see someone walking in a certain way, like with your dog, and you could be insanely moved by that thing, but just because you relate to it in a certain way, all right? But the fact that that happened casually doesn't make it necessarily a product of art. I think that to be a product of art, like to play devil's advocate here, why does some art sell better than others? It's not because of hype, not only because of hype. It's because it generally communicates something objectively, right? Unanimously. If something moves me because it's very specific to me, it's like I live something, someone says something in the right manner and it moves me. Yeah, it moves me, but it wasn't the intent of the person to move me or of that event. Again, an event doesn't even have intent. So I think that we have to maybe, John, think about it as artistic. And to again prove a point, prove a point. I'm not proving anything. I'm just illustrating a point rather. This fragrance here by Arigio, this is considered by some very artistic. I don't consider artistic at all. I don't consider Arigio an artistic brand in general. I consider it an artisanal brand. And yes, very awe-inducing, the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. But Russian Adam, the perfumer behind this, is just a giant nerd for ingredients. He selects stuff because it's the best in the category, right? And he puts stuff together kind of like, I just picture him again. I'm not throwing shade. I don't want to diminish his efforts whatsoever. But I just picture him looking at his shelf of ingredients and being like, "That's really, really good. I'm going to pair it with this other really, really good thing." He just puts them together and he's like, "This smells amazing," because he's such an ingredient nerd. And again, full respect for that. And then he names it Oud Zen because he gets a certain experience from a product that has been almost created casually, almost like randomly, right? Now, he's packaging this as Udzin. And this, in my opinion, is not art because he didn't sit down and he let out his emotions either by writing it down or by thinking about it or by whatever and creating something that tells that specific story intentionally. So this is not an artistic fragrance. Is it art to some people? Maybe. I completely agree that some people can see it as art because again, they might smell this and they might be insanely moved by it. They might be like, "Oh my God, this is the perfect replica of my grandfather's shoe." And Russian Adam might be like, "All right, cool," you know, but it wasn't his intent. I don't think Russian Adam had any intent. He didn't mean to make something Zen. It just turned out to be Zen, right? And again, like Melvushuni, he is a very emotional person. If you see his interviews, really he's very careful with his words. So he says stuff in a specific manner, and you really can see that he's connected to the language. And when he creates something, so for example, he created like the fragrance I talked about in the other time that we talked about the powerful fragrances, Varanasi. He created that, experiencing the city. He went to the city, he experienced it, he had that shock factor. He lived through Varanasi, he loved the city, he went back home, and that thought just elaborated. It fermented in his mind to the point where he felt the need to express that thought and that feeling into a fragrance. It's like writing a book. You read a lot of books. Some books are just like vomiting words out, and I'm literally making something which is commercial, right? It's a story. It can be a cool story, but it's just a story. And sometimes it's like meaningful, like properly a piece of the person's personality or experience, right? I completely second your statement that anything can be seen as art in the sense that it can move a specific person. And someone might smell imagination and be like, "Oh my God, this is exactly a smell of the house where I grew up." Fine.
Well, even in a negative way, it's still technically an experience. Like as Luke said, it doesn't have to be beautiful or good. I might have used the wrong word there, but it doesn't need to be good. Any
Yeah,
art.
no. I agree. I agree that it can move, but something which is artistic in intent is a little bit different than just someone perceiving something as art. And obviously, we're not the art police. We're not going to say, oh, you're not allowed to see that as art. Absolutely not. You can do whatever you want. But the fact is that art, which is considered such, is when I do something and you get what I'm doing through a language which is not obvious, in my opinion.
For me, I do understand. I do agree with you, Daniel, and I agree with John when he said like everything can be considered as art. But to get back to my healthy dose of elitism from prior, I am very much interested. I am not really interested about what people think art or a piece of art is. I am really interested in why they would consider it this as a piece of art, because if you know, like we get back to imagination, and someone says, oh, it's art, I would be like, why? I would be very much interested into why you would say that this is art, and maybe they have like a very elaborate conception of why they have like an artistic feeling for this fragrance. But I feel that most of the time people will say like, oh, it's nice.
Luke,
I'm not satisfied with this.
sorry, let me interrupt you for a sec. I just wanted to ask you something. I just want to play, again, devil's advocate. I love doing that. But so obviously people consider Leonardo da Vinci a huge artist, right?
Yes.
Now, Leonardo da Vinci was also a very technical person, and he drew some technical drawings. Do you consider his technical drawings art?
No. Right on the top of my
I do.
on the top of my heart, no. No, they were not. They were not like they were an expression of his intellect. They were an expression of his projects, of his reflection, but not of his feeling. And I don't think even his technical projects were meant to be seen or experienced by anyone else. So for me, like maybe if I think I will, a little bit, I will change. But like on the top of my head, no, I would not consider his technical drawings, his sketches as artistic. No.
Artistic and art are different words, though. We agreed on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, art can be like, it can be subjective. Like, I'll give it that. Again, I'm not the art police. So, John, which are fragrances that you consider artistic? Let's put it
Here's where I start agreeing with you guys. There are levels of artistic expression to this game, for sure. It all is still art, in my opinion. That's just my observer's opinion. Anything that gives you an experience is art. For example, we won't agree that this is highly artistic, but early on in my travels, this is one of the first fragrance bottles I ever really held and saw. And I was in awe how cool just all of this looked to me. Just personally, I really liked it. Whether it's the cap, the Medusa on the inside of the cap, all of this, the smell of it, the experiences I had with it. But this is agreed upon to be a low artistic value. I guess we could agree. This doesn't have the same artistic appeal to guys like us as something like this. And it's interesting to me as why. I think about this stuff all the time. Like, why is this Black Afghano so much more revered and respected by appreciators of this thing than this Versace thing? I have like 10 fragrances here. Just they could all be swept in and out as an example. Like, here's what I think if we were gonna have a museum piece. I'm very new to the history of fragrances. And these two are the first ones that I really got behind the narrative of before I got the fragrance.
What's the one on the right? The Sergiolensis Chergui?
Chergui and L'air du Desert Marocain. And why I say this is they both came out in 2005 and they both have a very similar brief, but they smell entirely different, like super different. And when I asked people blind what their experiences are with this, with no pre-intent or anything, I didn't get any two things the same. For the experiences that people are having, well, I guess when you ask someone, they're giving you an interpretation, and art is just meant to be experienced. I don't think it needs to be interpreted to be art. But right here, the success that this had was everybody I asked had something to say outside. It was an outside. They were being transported to nature, to outside. Someone said beach, sand dunes at the beach. someone said this was aquatic, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Wait till I tell you the name later." I was actually on a podcast, and he actually recorded that whole experience. But what I mean is, this is successful to me as more of a high art perfume, right? It's still art, but it's more artistic, in my opinion.
Consider them
than-
both artistic at the same level?
No, I would say
No, sorry,
these-
Chergui and L'Art des Marcan.
yeah. So when I smell these, right, with the brief, with the intention, I'm super behind the tower way more. Like I get that outside transportative thing way more than Chergui, but Chergui fits in Serge Lutan's lineup really well. Like it.
But
it
in my
fits.
opinion, Chergui is not artistic at all.
I don't
Great.
feel the
It's
same.
amazing,
Yeah.
but it's not artistic at all.
I say the tower feels like a more artistic fragrance to me. That's what I would say because it's just way more out there and riskier. I'd say it's more avant-garde in a way.
You know
than
why?
something like-
You know why?
What?
See if you agree with me. Tower made that for himself. He made
There-
that. He went home from Morocco and he made that for himself to remind himself of that smell. Christopher Sheldrake made that because he got a brief. He was like, make an African deserted smelling thing. He's very, very good at telling a story, but it's not his story.
Exactly. This is
went
art.
home and he made something for himself. He was like, I need that smell back. And he put his ass down and he just put himself to work to create that. And that's why it speaks to you in that way.
That's why he had an intention and he succeeded. And that's why the success is in the fact that he made you get what he intended with it. That's why it's artistic or art, whatever way you want to describe it, because he succeeded in his mission of evoking something. That's why it's more. That's why I agree. I don't think Chergui is necessarily. It tries to, but I think it fails, to be honest, because it does not take me to where it intended to. It's beautiful, okay, but to me, I think of like, I don't know, going to like an old country bar and like there's hay outside, you know.
We know about Tower's intention, right? Because of who we are, what we're into. But when I showed this to people who didn't know the intention, where I found the success was they still were transported to outside.
Yeah.
Without knowing the intention. The experience still matched, but there was also someone else who didn't get that. And if I asked 100,000 people, I wonder what the actual outcome would be, you know, or 1 million people. You need a big sample set to draw conclusions. But for us, we understand the brief. But for people who smell this blind, it's still an experience that they're having. It's art. Some people
It's okay,
like
though.
say the weirdest stuff when I show them stuff. I'll show them like, I don't know, really mass market thing like this Hawass or whatever. And they say crazy stuff. I have no idea they were coming out with that. Like, what? You smell coconuts? I don't smell coconuts. And they're like, oh, it reminds me of Florida. It reminds me of this vacation I went
That
on.
means that it's moving, it's evocative.
Yeah.
I think that, again, no shade on Hawass or Rasasi or whatever, but yeah, they made it because they're like churning out a product, right?
I'm disappointed with this one. I'll put it on record.
Okay.
That's all.
I think it's okay for the perfumer to do a bit of hand holding though, and tell you what it's meant to evoke with the name, sometimes with the packaging. That's with the notes. I mean, I know some people are anti notes. I don't tend to delve too deep in the notes, especially when there's like way too many. But sometimes it's okay to have our hands held a bit so we can get the most out of that product. And I feel like the name helps. Obviously, like you said, some people did not go to the air of the Moroccan desert, but that's just enough to take you to basically get the message home. I think that's okay.
I deliberately didn't tell them the name so that we just experience it without the information. And they still went there. They still went somewhere outside. So that's why I'd say, as he pulled that one off, really good, like really, really well. But something like Amberous, right? The experience my wife has no idea who this perfumer is. The house, she said yesterday when I wore this, smells like October, and it brought her through this entire season, this entire color palette. That whole thing to me is very artistic, but it's very unique to the person.
Before passing it back to Luke to kind of like put us back on rails, I just want to say something, which there's always that there's always that thought, right? Is it art when it's explained or not? So for example, if I were to be an artist and I do something super random and I have the street cred to have an exhibition about it, and I just watch people try to interpret it, right? Well, when I know that it was some super random, it was like literally random, is that art or not? So that is a huge dilemma. And it's like there's no way around it, right? Modern art, the stuff that is low skill on paper, that is appears very, very simple, as Luke said, just cutting the canvas, was there intentionality or not? Or is the artist laughing behind the curtain, as people try to figure it out or interpret it? In the case of L'Art de Désert Marocaine, the brief, as Mo said, really, really helps. If the artist hand holds you through it, then you're like, oh shit, yes, I understand. And that's why, in my opinion, male Fushuni fragrances are so effective. And that little booklet that I talk about every time is a huge part of the fragrance. You read it and you're like, holy crap, this is exactly that. This is that, right? But as Mo also experienced, without knowing nothing about the fragrances, you can still get most of the story. That's how effective they are. Anyway, Luke, bring us back on rails. Let's start wrapping the thing up because we've been at it for a while.
Yeah, there is always like some digressions when talking about something as subjective as art, something which has never been, like so well defined. Actually, I really like. I was like, I don't even do it on purpose. I have books everywhere in my house, and I have this book, which is like Qu'est-ce que l'art? So literally, what is art? And I have like 3 other books talking about art. So we are not going to read the end of it. But I think that if you define whenever you want, it is very useful to define concepts or words, conceptual words, even for yourself, to help you improve. And so I came up with like my own personal definition of art in general, which is not accurate, which has weaknesses, I'm sure. But for me, it is like every product of the human expression executed with some level of skills that makes you more sensitive to an aspect of your own daily life. So because I try, as you mentioned, like there is something about the intent, but there is also something about how it is received by the audience, how it is received by the audience, really, by the spectator or by the person who is going to do other fragrances. And I think it's quite important to address this. And so I decided to went into my own personal collection, and I have this, which is horrible to show on the camera, but it's Monolith by Jerome Studio. It's a Scottish house, and it is super, super bitter. I took this because I knew that someone would bring a little song by Mel Fushuni, and I wanted to go like to amp up the little song. And this was like extremely bitter. It's super, super dark. There is some coffee, there is some oud, and for me, it really. So I am biased, I think, as well by the simple name, Monolith, because I really think that I described it in one of my review as you are walking like in a foreign planet, and there is mud everywhere, and you are surrounded by dark, huge stones that are almost like watching you, and it's quite oppressive. It's really bitter, and you go through and you go through and you persist, and only at the end you can smell the coffee. And for me, I went through a whole journey, like smelling this fragrance, like almost like you are under the rain. It's wet. Every step is painful. But then finally you reach someone and someone's brewing hot coffee. And for me, it was really like a whole experience. And I didn't know like anything about the marketing except of the name, which is already something. But for me, I always smell of this. And whenever I wear Monolith, I pause to smell my coffee, like really when I'm having coffee in the morning, because I'm just like, yeah, that's really like the coffee, and it brings me, not my emotions. I'm not getting like emotional, but like I'm just enjoying more the time that I'm having with my coffee. And I have the same thing with a little song, with this rose and with this coffee note as well. And it just like it centers me in a way, and it makes me more sensitive to my surroundings. So that's my definition. And it's quite useful to discriminate what I consider art and what I consider non-art. Not because I'm elitist. I mean, despite the fact that I'm elitist, but also because it helps me, to grow as a person, as a consumer, and as an artist, and I try to visit art, to see art, to taste art, to smell art, because it makes I am convinced that it makes me a better person, on the long term, drop by drop. So that's what I wanted to introduce. The concept, my own personal skewed definition of what is art.
Luke, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you read the brief for that?
No, I did not.
So, for example, you could potentially be in a situation that that John described. That fragrance might be just kind of random.
Yes.
But you are very moved by it, and you perceive that story. So you see something which was not even artistic at all as an art, and you made it yourself. So
Yes.
I suggest overall to have a degree of skepticism. I always encourage skepticism, because skepticism gets you thinking, right? Taking stuff at face value is almost never worth it. It doesn't really serve any purpose, right? If you want to be informed, you can make your own decisions. And if you smell something like imagination, ask yourself, do I think that this is art? And if the immediate response is yes, ask yourself, why do I think this is art? And then maybe you will draw your conclusions. Maybe it is effectively art for you or not. And if you don't understand something like Meo Fushuni Buio, which is an incredible fragrance, by the way, if you don't understand it and you smell it, you're like, no, no, no. Be skeptical. Be skeptical towards yourself. Be like, all right, let me see something. Meo Fushuni is known to be an artist. He is very artistic in intent. Let me give this a chance. Let me be skeptical towards myself and try to understand the thing he's trying to tell me. That makes you grow. That makes you advance. And yeah, I think that art and artistry is a world which is absolutely amazing. To conclude, from my point of view, yes, fragrances can be art. Not everything, in my opinion, is art. Maybe because I'm cynical at heart. Maybe because I'm jaded or skeptical, whatever. But I truly think that some stuff is deserving of a medal, right? It's deserving of that recognition, and it's subjective, like to a degree. The last fragrance that I want to showcase is this one here, Tundra by Perfume Roma. I'm sure 100% that Perfume Roma did not create this with an artistic intent. They created this because maybe it just happened. They were mixing ingredients together and it just happened to smell this way. Or maybe they had a little bit of intentionality to replicate an idea. But ultimately, when smelling this is incredibly moving to me. It has an artistic vision, which again, I'm interpreting. It might be due to the fact that it's very, very soft, very timid, and it does in fact evoke the feeling of the name, Tundra. I'm imagining snowfall on this very damp forest floor. This is a personal experience. Is it an artistic perfume? I'm not really sure. I'm still being skeptical about it, but I'm still open to interpretation, and I'm interpreting my thoughts and I'm running them through the machine to try to understand what's going on. So yeah, just my advice in the end is try to be a little bit skeptical. And if something intrigues you, it's just like read about it. Read about the artist. Read about the perfumer, the creative director. Sometimes stuff doesn't really check out, you know? If I were to read about Filippo Soccinelli, and the guy seems like a fraud, right? I would be like, these fragrances seem like they're not artistic. They're made to be artsy, right? There's a word as artsy. Artsy is for those people who who want to be artists, but they don't really put in the effort. They don't have the skill. They don't have the knowledge. They're not convincing. The result is ultimately not convincing. But it just so happens that Filippo Zoccinelli is incredibly convincing. You hear him talk and everything checks out, right? So I deem him an incredible creative director with a very, very strong artistic intent.
I want to bounce off of that because recently I got to smell Frederick Malle, and in the lead up to that, I listened to his. He has like an hour-long podcast. I started listening to people talk about his fragrances, so I went into it with this really nice priming, and that's called framing. Marketing uses framing. Every information piece that you get that's not the item is framing, and framing sets us up. And framing can set you up to have a really satisfying experience. It really can be super satisfying, but framing can also be deception. So when Daniel says, what was it? Stay skeptical of your own opinions or of what you're dealing. Stay skeptical of the art, the artist, your own opinions. Yeah, I think that just to highlight that and underline it. Stay aware of framing and its effect on your opinion or your experience in general. Your opinion doesn't even really need to happen, just the experience itself, because we experience a lot of things that we don't necessarily have a verbalized opinion on anyway. You know, you don't talk about the shirt you're wearing that much or how you look generally head to toe. You don't even really talk about how you communicate. And there's a whole entire art of communication. To me, you guys are all artists, in my opinion. I look at Luke's Instagram and read the beautiful stuff he writes, the awesome pictures he takes. Mo, you speak like I would kill to be able to speak like you, right? You have a very beautiful tone and the way you just put words together, very concise. Daniel, love your channel. Obviously, thousands of people tune into your creation. You are an artist with words, and that's just a fact in my observations. So I experience you guys as artists because your expressions, your things that you're posting, Daniel, your photography got me into photography. So that's just my conclusion there. Everyone can be an artist. You might not even realize all you need to do is have somebody have a strong experience from something you're creating, whether it's words in the air or a physical manifestation of something. And that'll be where I end and pass off the torch.
You're very, very kind, John. Thank you for the kind words. I think when it comes to fragrances, I think the word artistic has two different, people have one or two reactions, okay? Either someone sees it as praise, okay, and it's used like like beautiful, as artistic, and sometimes it can interest someone, right? Like for example, when someone says, "Oh, if Daniel says check out this artistic fragrance, he's got my interest," right? But to some people, right, if someone says check out this artistic fragrance, they're like, "Oh no, not again," and they see it as some kind of, in fashion when the clothes on the run show are like totally ridiculous, where they're like totally ridiculous, right? Like this guy with needles coming out of his head as a hat or whatever. Some people in FragCom look at artistic frags as like that, like it's a turn off for them. I want to speak to them, okay? Because, I'm a utilitarian at heart. I say don't be put off by artistic as some kind of like, it's unwearable. It's going to be just a statement. It's just there to evoke a reaction. I'm not even going to sample or test them out because you all probably like artistic fragrances and you don't really even know about them. So I say don't be put off and you think this is just some kind of snobby niche kind of world that you don't want to be a part of. Try some of these artistic fragrances because a lot of them are very well made. I mean, this is artistic, guys, and I bet you most of our viewers like this. So you are into artistic frags if you like Jubilation 25 because it evokes celebration of 25 years of Ramage. It has a royal feel, celebratory perfume, and it executes that and it makes you feel that way. So don't be put off by the phrase artistic because not everything is super challenging necessarily or unwearable, or because I know some people are off-put by the whole thing, right? Some people it excites them. Some people are just like, nah, artistic, that's just, I'm not even going to try. So I'd say to those people, give them a try and don't be put off. It's not all crazy, gimmicky things. There's some really beautiful fragrances out there you could be missing out on.
Great. Awesome. I was expecting nothing else other than this episode to be completely inconclusive. This is
Beautiful.
exactly what I was expecting.
I knew.
And actually,
We
It
would
has
like
to
to
be this
agree.
way. It has to be, right? Because art, it's a discussion. It's like a conversation, but ultimately everyone has their own opinion. So yeah, I think that we all agree on like just like be a little bit more open-minded and do not just write stuff off just because it's either too simple, because sometimes you come back to it and you see the maybe the true artistic vision that was there and which just was not communicated. Or don't write off stuff that is too artsy because it's like a put off, right? I can totally understand it. It can come as a cop out. There is a little bit of an inflation of this word, artistic masterpiece. Again, we are a little bit too flooded by the thing. So keep an open mind, be skeptical, sample a lot of stuff, and just, you know what? If in doubt, my suggestion is write something down. Putting something in words, in your own words, helps immensely to just make it real, make those thoughts real. You know, when you write something down and you read it again, you're like, all right, this makes sense, or it doesn't make sense at all. Or if you don't feel like writing, just like speak into a recorder or something like that. Cool. Amazing. I like it. This episode was super fun. Very
It was a banger.
informative, in my opinion. It's thought provoking. And yeah, I think that it's definitely something to be repeated. Let us know in the comments down below if you prefer this sort of like inconclusive talking or if you prefer a little bit more of a fragrance showcase. We're going to do a little bit of both. I think it's a good mix up. But if you have any other ideas for episodes to come, again, leave them down in the comments. We're all ears. We have a lot more fun challenges to do. We have like multiple reviews, like we're going to review a fragrance together. We're going to be sampling stuff together on camera. A lot of fun stuff to come. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thank you guys for your time. It's always incredibly appreciated. I really, really like talking to you guys. Again, it feels like talking to buddies, just like nerding out on a couch. All right. See you next time. Thanks so much, guys. Cheers.